And to our economy is today's Money Power panel. We've got Peter Schiff. He is the Chief Global Strategist with Euro-Pacific Capital. My favorite professor, Charles Lipson, is back from the University of Chicago. And Spencer Patton, Chief Investment Officer at Steelvine Investments, is here as well. Guys, what do you think? I mean, you open the New York Times, and they're just opening the door to a whole new wave of taxes. I mean, there's the carbon tax, the VAT tax. Peter, you look so excited. Are you thrilled about this? Is it a great idea?
Well, first of all, I got bad news for the middle class. If you want all this government, then you have to pay for it. And the truth is, if we don't slash government spending, then we have to raise taxes on the middle class. But, the problem is there's no guarantee that the higher taxes will go to reduce the deficit. The government might just spend it. Look, they already blew. We just raised taxes on the rich, the top 1%. And all the money has already been spent on relief aid for Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Professor Lipson, I mean, what do you think? I mean, you think if we give them more money, they're just going to spend it, or you think that they're going to actually sit down and pay their bills?
I'd say America's too fat already.
That was good. Not too fat, but too fat. I love it.
Too fat already. I think that that it's exactly right. What's the marginal expenses from a marginal dollar of taxes raised? Is it less than $1? I would say about 3 years out, it will be more than $1. So if you raise $1 in tax revenues from higher taxes well, actually from anything, I expect that what will happen is that $1 will be spent, and it's not just a guess. In Illinois, we raised state income taxes about 75% 3 years ago, 3 years ago. We spent all that money. Look at the states around the United States with high taxes. Do any of them have big budget surpluses?
No, nobody does right now. Spencer, let me ask you, because I want to make sure everyone knows that VAT is a value-added tax. It means that everywhere along the way you just add on a little something for the government. It basically ends up really hitting lower income and middle class people the most, because on the margin, it's a larger percent of their income. What do you think it means for the economy if we add a value added tax to everything we all go out and do and buy?
Oh, it's a disaster. I mean, anytime that you're charging the consumer more to go to the government, you're going to have a serious issue with a government that has no control over its balance sheet. I find it so interesting that, the Occupy Wall Street movement was all about the 1% and how they were the problem. And now you've heard President Obama speaking lately about how we're going to tax the top 2%, and you're seeing that number grow. I would bet my left arm that by the end of his presidency, we're going to be talking about the top 5% or the top 10%. And that number is going to keep growing, because the problem with socialism and those type nanny state beliefs is that you're going to see running out of other people's money. That's the problem. That's you can't.
That's kind of what always happens in the end. Peter, let me ask you, why is a value-added tax a bad idea? Because to a lot of people, it might just sound like another sales tax, and we have sales tax everywhere. It's a pain in the neck, but it doesn't seem to be that big of a problem. Why is a value-added tax not a good idea?
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea if it replaces the income tax. I think it's better to raise taxes through consumption than by taxing savings, income, and investment.
What are the odds they're going to give up the income tax in order to put into place the value-added tax? There's no way that's
it's going to be on top of the income tax. And that's going to be the problem, is we're growing government instead of addressing the real problem, which is spending. And, President Obama says he wants to protect the middle class from higher taxes. Well, the only way to do that is to protect them from bigger government, because the middle class has to pay for big government. And right now, because we're running these huge deficits, the Federal Reserve creates all kinds of inflation to monetize those deficits, and that's a tax on average Americans who see the price of food go up, the price of gasoline go up. Prices are rising because of big government and the inflation that is used to finance it.
Professor Lipson, what about a carbon tax? That sounds to a lot of people like big companies and polluters and people that are using carbon are going to be the ones that have to pay the tax, and it wouldn't impact all of us. What impact would it have on the average person, and what about the economy?
I think that what Peter was saying was exactly right. you can look at these taxes individually, and you could say that some of them would be a good idea on their own basis. For example, a VAT or carbon tax might on their own basis be a good tax. The problem is if they pile on top of others, then they're a problem. Why is a carbon tax potentially a good tax? Because of what are called externalities. Carbon imposes a lot of costs on other people, and instead of indirect taxes, cafe standards for cars and so forth, the easiest thing to do, the simplest thing to do, is to just in effect make gas more expensive. But the problem is these things just become revenue streams.
Right.
And one more thing about the carbon taxes, what they do is they often, by grandfathering in current polluters, they're a giant giveaway to the friends of the current administration.
That's a great point that no one talks about. That's a great point because people get grandfathered in. Now, clearly we could spend all night on this, but I want to move on. I mean, maybe I'm looking at this all wrong, and that what we should do is really bite the bullet and just really tax people and pay down the debt once and for all. In fact, we crunch the numbers. And if we just grit our teeth and we raise taxes once and for all, and we tax everyone 40%, just everyone, no exemptions, nothing, just 40%, we could wipe out the debt in 3 years. What do you think, guys? Good idea?
No,
Peter, what do you think?
Not a chance.
No? Why?
Did you check your math? The national debt,
that
just
gets you
the
to
funded
16 trillion.
portion.
That gets you to 16
you
trillion.
can't pay off this.
So maybe it takes 4 years, 5. Why not tax everybody 40%?
It's
Why not
impossible
tax the hell
to pay
out of
that
everybody
debt off.
and get it over with?
Now, even if you raise taxes to 100%, we couldn't pay it off. That's the problem. We're going to default on this debt. The only question is how are we going to do it? Are we going to do it honestly, or are we going to do it through inflation? But it is impossible to pay the debt off. And when you look at the unfunded liabilities that dwarf the official debt, we can't tax our way out of this problem. No. We have to take a meat hook to government spending, including entitlement.
I thought maybe that was a good idea and that I'd been way off in this cutting spending thing all the time. Professor Lipson, let's just tax the hell out of everybody and get it over with. But, like, really tighten our belt. 5 years from now, we could pay down the whole thing. Come on.
Let's just keep you and me out of this. No, here's the problem. There are a couple of problems. The first problem is that basically what President Obama and the high-spending Democrats would really like to do is ultimately raise the portion of the government in our economy from its traditional 20% up to about 25%. And they've been gradually doing that. And no amount of taxes that you add on would pay for it. And in addition, it would slow economic growth. And the second problem is that nobody on the spending side is tackling the big drivers of the debt, which are these unfunded liabilities. And the only way you get at those is by structural changes. You have to raise very gradually retirement age and the like, but you do not hear any Democrats talking about it, and they're in power.
Spencer, why does the math not work?
We can't raise it gradually. We got to do it right now. We got to cut the benefits of the people who are currently receiving them. We can't afford them.
Spencer, let me get you back in there. Why does the math not work? Why is this problem getting away from us? We can't just raise taxes on everybody and just pay for this problem, because that's what they make it seem like in Washington. If we all just paid a little bit more, we could solve this problem.
Yeah, and that's really not the answer. I mean, spending is clearly the problem. What I would so love to see is a pro-growth policy. If you could have U.S. GDP be in a 3 or 4% range rather than in the 1.5%, hopefully type range, you'd have a great deal more government revenue that if you can finally tackle a little bit of the entitlements and take those down, increase some retirement ages, that's how you tackle this debt. If you get growth of 3 or 4%, this is possible. And so give us pro-growth policies. Give us a free market. Get rid of the regulations. Get rid of the carbon tax, the VAT, lower taxes, and then
we have a lot more taxes coming.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's true.
Coming.
And we would have to in order to pay for any of this. But Peter, let me ask you, I mean, if you were trying to explain it to someone who, wasn't politically invested in this fight at all, and they're really just looking at the numbers, why does it not work? Is it because the debt is growing so fast it's getting away from us? Is it because you can only tax to a certain percent and then people stop working? I mean, what is the fundamental reason why this would not work?
Well, The problem is government is promising a bunch of free stuff. That's how President Obama got elected. He promised free stuff to a lot of people. And the fact of the matter is it's not free. It's very expensive. And the middle class is going to have to pay for it. But we simply can't afford the amount of government that we've been promised. And you've got the government trying to run these giant Ponzi schemes like Social Security. It's not about tinkering with it. It can't work. It is impossible to reform these programs in a way that is going to work. We have to acknowledge that. And we're never going to get the kind of economic growth you're talking about, 4 or 5% a year, unless we let the economy restructure. That means the Fed has to stop printing money. They have to let interest rates go up because they're much too low to encourage savings and investment. And we have to allow this economy to restructure. That means a lot of people have to lose a lot of money. Banks have got to fail. Real estate prices have to come down. People have to stop spending so they can start saving so we can have the capital investment needed to grow a real economy.
I think I'm depressed. None of those things are going to happen. But with that, I'm going to let you go. Power panel, thank you so much.